please stand for the pledge of the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and thanks everybody for coming out this evening to our voting meeting. I wanted to first welcome Sean Lockenger here. Sean is with Sweet Stevens, Katz, and Williams. He's filling in for Ellis Katz tonight, but he'll be our attorney in cases where Mr. Katz is not available. So welcome. Thank you. This evening, before we get into the formal agenda, I do want to take an opportunity to give a little bit of time to Mr. Ken Levan and his introduction of our new Executive Director for the Exeter Community Education Foundation.
It was always my dream from the humble beginnings of the foundation that the foundation would one day develop a community presence. We would be a uniting force between the public and the school district. And if we were selling $5 lottery tickets in front of Redner's, somebody comes up and says, "Foundation? Yeah, here's $5." And that's a dream that about 25 people on the foundation board share. But we knew when we started 9 years ago that to get there, we needed an executive director. There was always a good reason why we didn't get one. And then 2 years it became so critical that we said we're going to do it anyway. But where are we going to find somebody with a background we need, who has a perfect personality and the sweetest personality you'll ever find? It's not going to happen. And then the heavens part. And I would like to introduce Amy Lutz, our executive director. Amy's going to say a few words, and then she will try to answer any questions reasonably, because she has not officially started yet. She starts very soon. So, Amy?
Thank you, Ben. That was very nice. But thank you for welcoming me. I'm excited to work with everybody. I've already gotten my feet wet a little bit with the golf tournament in the last couple of weeks, and that was exciting. We've worked with a lot of you getting money together for the project, and I look forward to working with everybody else in the future, getting to know everyone. It's a lot of familiar faces, but some new faces. So my family and I live in the district. We have children in the district. Looking forward to getting more involved with the day-to-day. I know that one of the big things is meeting with the other school districts to see what they're doing in their foundations. So that's going to be the first precedence for me, is to get a feel of what everyone else is doing and see how we match up and then go from there. So that's what we're planning on doing, but I have not officially started until September 1. So we're going to get the kids back to school, and then we'll get me back into work. So any questions?
I heard the golf tournament went really well. Can you say how long?
$21,000 we net this year, so that was very nice. It was, of all of the people behind the board, that is very kind to put together an event so quickly, and to be involved for the last 2 months of it was nice.
I'd like to welcome you on behalf of myself. The board can speak for themselves, but I had the opportunity to work with Amy at the Penn State Health St. Joe's, where she was an integral part of our foundation that raised several $1 million each year, both cultivating sponsorships and running special events and diving into relationships with past patients. So I think there's a great opportunity here to mine our most fertile base of fundraising, which is our alumni and our business community. And I'd also encourage her to bring some coordination around all of the activities that occur in the district, so that we avoid what I always talk about, which is donor fatigue, and that we be a little bit more strategic about how how we go about raising funds. And Amy knows this quite well, that one of the biggest mistakes a fundraiser makes is actually not asking for enough money when you do make an ask. And Amy knows the tools that are available to professional fundraisers to assess what the giving potential is of potential donors, and that, I think, it'll be a big boon for us as well.
Very well said.
Yeah, point of curiosity, we had a Mrs. Woods that served on the board.
There is some relation there, yes.
Okay.
Yes, Bonnie is my husband's aunt.
Just curious, it's
Yes.
nice to see, you know,
Yes, yes.
genealogy is one of my hobbies since I've been on the board.
So what is your background as far as educationally? Have you done anything educationally in?
I have not.
fundraisers?
What we did at the hospital was patient-related or was community-related, building a new hospital. We had an alumni association with the hospital through the School of Nursing that was since defunct, but still very active with the hospital, and I did a lot. I ran their system for the 14 years that I was there, so, no, not necessarily with education. And that's why I think it's important to get out and meet with the other school districts and then catch yourself up to date on everything that's involved. So I look forward to learning.
So you worked for the hospital?
I
for
did.
14 years?
For 14 years.
And what was your title?
I was development coordinator, and then at the end, I was, right before my last son was born, I was major gifts officer.
We have questions on them too, of course.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming this evening.
Amy, you're welcome to board meetings at any time. We'd like to see your face around here, and I know that you'll have an office here, you'll have an account, phone access, so and we're glad to be able to accommodate, the Education Foundation and extend some opportunities for you to have a home here. Thank you.
Thank everybody.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Nice night. Thank you.
I'd just like to make this clear before we move forward. My name and my number is on every do not call list in America. We make that perfectly clear.
However, we all carry cards in our wallet that Russ is
Doesn't work.
This is on the internet.
Tweet it out.
Okay. Our second item on the agenda is presentation by Mr. Jamie Schlesinger of TFM Financial Advisors and Mr. Peter Edelman from Stevens and Lee. We'll be talking about the 2017 General Obligation Bond Series and refunding a portion of that series.
Okay, thank you. So I'm Jamie Schlesinger from PFM. I was here a couple months ago to talk about the opportunity to refinance this 2011 bonds. When I left, we were looking at a couple of alternatives and want to keep you apprised of where we stood. And the thing we hoped for with rates to go down from the time I left to where we are today, and that's exactly what has happened. So good news, we haven't sold bonds yet, but we're going to talk about that in a second. So step one is rates went down, and step two, we've done everything necessary outside of what we're talking about tonight to allow us to sell bonds, which at this point we have scheduled for a sale for tomorrow at 11 a.m. It would be a competitive bond issue, which we've done in the past. Given the timing of the transaction and the amount of paper out there, which means there's not a lot of paper out there, there's going to be some pretty strong interest from underwriters. So I'm hoping we'll have a pretty competitive sale and keep our rate as low as possible. What I have is, and I'm not going to go through every page of this, but I'll give you some of the highlights of the presentation itself, and hopefully we'll come in pretty close to the numbers that I'm describing here. So if you turn to page, I just want to point you right to page 2, just to highlight for you. The yellow highlight, this is your debt summary. This is what you have outstanding. You don't do anything. So the highlighted yellow is the debt we're looking to refinance, those 2011 bonds. They are ultimately to be paid back over an 8-year period. The call date was actually in May, but there wasn't enough economics to do anything at this point, so now we're ready to go now. Those bonds were in advance refunding the 06 bonds. The average rate on those bonds is about 3%. So when you hear the rate I'm expecting it to be, you'll be pretty happy with that rate. So that's what we're thinking about right now, starting out at 3% interest rate. The next couple pages, I think this is important for you to see. We were able to complete a rating review, and the which you've had for a number of years. It's a very, very strong rating for school districts. The highest you can be is AAA. There's only so many of those out there, but having a AA credit rating is really nice. That's what's going to keep the demand here for your particular transaction. A couple of the notes that they have, you can read this at your leisure. They're very happy with your strong finance background and good management. So those two combinations keep you very, very strong. So kudos to administration for how well they're doing. Kudos to the board for keeping your finances in a good place. I'm going to skip all the way to page 13. Again, as I mentioned, the bonds we're talking about are the 2011s. We're not going to refund everything. There's not enough economics to refinance the first maturity, so we're going to leave that one outstanding, but we're going to refund the rest. So the new bonds will be about $6.5 million. We leave $0.5 million or so outstanding after this is all said and done. We expect the overall interest rate, hopefully from the sale, we want to be about 1.5%. So we're hoping to cut your rate in half from what you have today. Given the structure of this, it's really short and sweet, nice meaty maturities, which is two perfect things when it comes to bond being purchased. They like these type of structure. We're going to structure this where we're going to take savings over time. So what you'll notice is on column 10, you'll save about $30,000 to $40,000 per year if these rates come in this fashion. This will, one, allow you to keep taxes at a good place, allow you to do other things in the near future, and it generates the most savings for you because you're taking things over time. So it benefits you in all those fashions. Again, if all these things happen, you save about $350,000. I think when I came here a couple months ago, it was in a $150,000 to $200,000 range. So you can see, we timed this pretty well. I got a little lucky. So hopefully that works out. Savings as a percentage of refunded principal, it's a little over 5% savings, almost 6%. In this market, if you can save 2 to 3%, that's what you want. So what we have tonight for you to consider is what is called a parameters resolution. We've done these in the past. The reason for this is we haven't sold the bonds yet. This gives us the flexibility to sell the bonds at a good time. That good time is tomorrow. So we're asking you to consider actually a higher amount than we're ultimately going to have. It's going to be a $7.5 million authorization. We're going to ask you to use a 5.5% interest rate. We're going to ask you to have a minimum savings threshold of 2%. All those are just for purposes of standardization to allow us to structure the debt in a fashion that makes sense based on the rates we actually receive and hit all the windows that are necessary to make DCD happy, which is the states. Ultimately, I think we're going to look very similar to what I'm talking about on page 13. I'll stop for a second. Peter's here to talk about the real legal stuff. I kind of hit high notes, but certainly if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. I should point out page 14 is the estimated sources and uses, which includes expected cost of issuance, how we come up with a transaction. Those are highlighted on that page as well. If all goes well tomorrow, we would settle on the 21st of September, which then would allow us to pay off the old bonds and start paying on the new bonds. Questions?
So I just want to say, I think the one thing we just want to maybe say just publicly for everybody who might not understand it, and I don't certainly understand as well as you guys, we're not issuing new debt here. We're refinancing.
You're taking out old and issuing new. So
Right.
the net effect is a wash. All you're really doing is reducing your interest costs over time.
Right.
It's not for anything else than saving money.
Great. Thanks for explaining. I think it's good for people to understand.
Jamie, what's the structure that will pick the savings?
We're taking savings over time, so the principal payback allows you to get about $30,000 to $40,000 per year until maturity.
Okay.
So sometimes districts decide to take it in the initial years.
Right.
You guys are doing well enough that you don't need to take that for your budgetary purpose. This allows you to help over the next few years, and if other things pop up, it avoids any additional costs.
What is the cost to us for the bond issue?
So the cost issuance are.
I'm missing, I
Yeah,
just don't know what I'm.
I'll
looking
review
at.
it for you. That's on page 14.
What, am I looking at the 50,000 number or?
Yeah, so what we'll start with, we'll start from the top to the bottom. So the sources, this is the amount of new debt you're gonna ultimately issue. It's gonna change a little bit based on the bids we receive. But as a guess right now, we think it's gonna be about $6.5 million. The amount to call, you need to pay off the old bonds, of course, is the biggest cost to you. That will be $6,381,000, give or take. The underwriter's discount, this is the expected commission paid to the purchaser of the bonds. I don't know who that is at this point. It could be Jane Montgomery Scott, it could be Robert Baird. Whoever provides the lowest interest rate will be the winner. So we expect that to be around $50,000. Legal fees for bond counsel, solicitor, advertising expenses, around $36,000 and change. FA and expenses, that's us, around $30,000. Credit rating, that's at Standard & Poor's credit rating, which we need to help sell your bonds, that's $14,000. Official statement is a document that we use to help sell the bonds to the public. That's the cost of preparing that, printing that's $9,000. Internet auction, that is, we have a website called pfmauction.com. That's going to host the website and allow the bidders to come in at 11 o'clock tomorrow and put their interest rates on that website and ultimately determine who the winner is. So it's like eBay, that's what I say, for municipal bonds.
So that's something we could actually watch and follow.
Yes, Ann's watching it tomorrow at 11 o'clock. It's actually kind of fun to watch, so if you have nothing to do tomorrow, show up around 11:13, you can probably watch the tail end of it.
I'll set that next to my paint drying.
Yeah. Hey, it's fun for me. Then we've got paying agents, people that essentially help pay the bond holders, a couple $500, paying off the old bonds, redemption fee, CUSIP for the social security number for bonds, and some miscellaneous. That'll go down, but we built a little fluff in there. So, kind of all in, those are the costs of doing the transaction. All the numbers I'm talking about here are net, so that $350,000 I hope you get, that's what's in your pocket once it's all said and done. I can't get any more detail than that.
That helps bring it down a little bit. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Well, keep your fingers crossed on tomorrow. Peter will talk about their resolution.
Thank you.
Good evening, hi. My name is Peter Edelman, with the law firm of Stevens & Lee. Some familiar faces, but I know there's some new board members since I last was here. So hello. As Jamie noted, there's a resolution before the board tonight which will authorize the issuance of the bonds and basically approve the program that he just described. It authorizes the maximum principal amount, the maximum interest rates, the application of the bond proceeds to complete the refunding. It's drafted in compliance with state law, so it's a little longer resolution than your typical board resolutions, but it's designed to really complete all the official action that's required by the board to complete the financing. We had an opportunity to circulate that to Jamie as your solicitor before tonight, and I think it's in good shape for passage. Assuming we move forward with this, we will file proceedings with the Department of Community and Economic Development up in Harrisburg. They will review everything to make sure it's been done in compliance with state law and issue a certificate of approval. So, if there's any questions specifically about the resolution, I'd be happy to entertain them. But really, I think by enacting this resolution tonight, you will be authorizing us to move forward with the financing tomorrow. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. We're going to move on. Our next presentation is with Mr. Mangold of ACBA, the district-wide facility study.
Can you hear me okay?
Speak again, Ed, please.
I'm sorry, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, take y'all's speaker on my end there. That may help a little bit. I guess before I want to finish, to make sure you're seeing my screen with the Exeter Township School District logo.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, I'll launch right in. Thank you, everyone, for having me this evening. As you said, I'll be going over the district-wide feasibility study. Let me take this opportunity to thank everyone. This has really been a collective effort from district administration, obviously the facilities committee and the balance of the school board that were very engaged in the process, our building principals and staff, and we also, we did a presentation that was very similar back in April with the community, at the community forum. So if anybody was in attendance at that evening's meeting, some of this may look very familiar. This was a very direct process. So if the material does look familiar as we're going through, that is only because this was a built process. As we go through this PowerPoint presentation you're seeing is really the culmination of all the efforts and the building of the district study as we went through. As I mentioned, our team was, of course, headed up by the district's administration and all the folks involved on the committee and the board. KCBA, of course, we guided things and coordinated with our engineers, SDE. Steve Gribb is the electrical principal at that engineering firm, is also a resident of the district. He was very in tune and involved with the project, as well as our civil engineers, Terraform. I know you have a lot on the agenda this evening, so I am going to go through this relatively quickly, but if there's at any point you need me to put the brakes on, please let me know. We can always go back to any of the slides or discuss any of the items after I'm done as well. As we've been talking about, what we were charged with was evaluating the buildings and then, of course, developing a prioritized maintenance program for the district. And that was all balanced by both looking at all those operational items, balanced with the educational goals. And that's where it was very important that we sat down, we interviewed each of the building principals to get their input on how their buildings were performing educationally, and then layering that information in with our evaluations as we crawl around the buildings and developed our reports. As I stated, we reviewed existing conditions of the buildings themselves. We evaluated their capacities to support the educational programs. We also looked at the enrollment projections developed by the state. They just released some updated numbers that basically confirmed what we had seen looking back for the last 10 years or so of the district's enrollment, basically reflecting that enrollment is relatively flat. It is actually trending slightly down, and PD's numbers, I'm not sure of all the voodoo that goes into developing those, but they are reflective of that trend. So as part of that, we were evaluating building capacities and enrollment, assuming that flat or slightly dropping grade enrollment structure. We looked at all of their educational facilities in addition to the Martin Luther Louch building, which houses the district offices. And as I mentioned, as part of the evaluation of the buildings, the end goal was to deliver a maintenance program that the district could use as a roadmap moving forward for the next 5-10 years, keeping the facilities as safe as possible. Security was a big item that we took a look at. There are quite a bit of building facility systems that need attention, and basically that roadmap is going to outline all those actions that we have to take to keep everything functioning well and supporting the educational priorities for the district. Excuse me. So just briefly going over what that process involved. We took a out-to-in approach, looking at the sites and the building functionalities, the conditions of both the interior of the buildings, how they work for both the students and the faculty and administrators.
Excuse me, Ed. Are you moving your presentation, or should we be pushing buttons or something here? We still have the front screen with just the logo.
Oh, I am pushing buttons. I've been pushing them for a few minutes here. Anne may have to hit the link again. because I'm looking at this and I do see that it doesn't look like we are linked in, other than for audio. Yeah, these are the really boring wordy slides, so you're really not missing much visually yet. So I can keep talking while you're trying to sink in on that end. So as I was saying, we're looking at the building conditions, code compliance, safety and security, your building systems, your mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, and of course energy efficiency. That's one of those things that's a high priority for the district, looking at your utility bills and how to improve on those. And I'm starting to get to some graphics here, so let me know if you want me to hold up.
We're still on the logo, Ed.
Okay. And do you have access to that link in the invitation that you can bring up on your end?
Yes.
Okay. If you can hit that web link, that'll probably sync you back in. If not, let me know and I'll try to restart here. I should mention that in addition to this PowerPoint, we did deliver a couple of hard copies and a digital version of the full study. It's 130 some odd pages in PDF format. So what you're seeing here will be a compression of that entire study. Are you seeing anything else other than the startup screen at this point?
Right now, it looks like the junior high.
Okay, perfect. All right, we're back. Okay, so as you can see, we really didn't miss much visually here. So through our evaluations, one of the deliverables that's in that hard copy package and the PDF package, we went through each building and developed a narrative that basically outlined the history of each of the buildings, their physical conditions, as well as their educational impact items. So these narratives are present for each of the buildings we went through. We found that this is a nice way to go through, give you a real sense of how the building's performing. We highlight some issues for consideration. We're just showing you an example here of the junior high school, talking about the walls and ceilings and the physical environment in some of the spaces. So all of these reports are available in that PDF format. Okay, I'm just going to truck through here, touch on each of the buildings we looked at. And each of these gives a summary of what's in the full study, showing building capacity, enrollment, when some additions were done, renovations to each of the buildings. First, Jackson Wall. You'll notice that as we go through, Jackson Wall, Lorraine, and the junior high are high on the list of facilities that need the most attention, mostly due to their age and their building systems needs. Those three schools in particular do not have secure vestibules at this point, as do Reichton, Watton Creek, and the senior high school. So that would be one of our high priority items for recommending improvements in that area. Security cameras, both interior and exterior, are lacking in this building as well as those other three. And the building systems are all pretty much in need of replacement. Some of that might be able to be done gradually. At the end of this study, basically the thing that's the big tool that's going to be useful for the district, and Rob Prezuri is the facilities director, that roadmap document that shows recommendations on how to prioritize things over the next several years. We'll show that at the end of this. And then moving to Lorraine, again in fair condition, considering its age. It had a 90s edition where, you know, most of it's in pretty good shape, but some of the building systems and materials are starting to need attention. Door hardware in classrooms is of the knob type and does not meet current ADA compliance. Some of the exterior items that need attention, specifically playground, there's some barriers to accessibility there, and general drainage issues, things that can be fairly easily taken care of, but a lot of biggies are the roof items and the building systems that are going to be somewhat costly, but are really important to make sure that the building's performing well. Milwaukee Creek is your newest facility, completed in 2011. It's in really excellent condition and really is supporting all of your educational needs right now. In interviews with the principal, there was a state desire to start creating some maker spaces at the K-4 level, which is something we're seeing as we're going through a lot of school districts right now. They're starting earlier, looking for group project spaces as well. I think really not a lot of critical items at this school. It's mostly a few things that would be nice if we could take care of now, but they are not really critical. The Reichton School is one of the newer facilities as well. As a lot of you may know, that was originally designed as a K-4, but with the district changing needs, shifted to a 5th and 6th grade facility. It's in very good condition. We do have some equipment concerns with the geothermal well field, where the engineers are recommending flushing of the well field piping. That'll help the performance and the operational efficiency of the building. One of the biggies, and we double check mark this for safety, is the swale at the back of the building. You can see the picture in the lower left. It looks nice and green and lush right now, but that little area is between the back of the school and the recess yard for the students, and it becomes flooded regularly, and in the winter months freezes up, and is definitely a safety concern that should be addressed relatively shortly. Excuse me. Again, the building's in really good shape. There was discussion of a one-to-one computing program being planned for this coming year, which will free up some dedicated computer classroom space for educational support as needed. There was a STEM classroom established this year, which really seems to be a hit. There was a state desire within the school to create a TV studio directly off that STEM area to help students kind of expand that program within the school. Security cameras at pretty much all the buildings is something on the list, and I know the district was looking at this improvement before we even came on board, but I think we found that the expansion of the camera system is pretty much needed at all of the buildings. Excuse me. The junior high, as I mentioned, this one does have quite a bit that's needed to be done there, and I'm going to skip through this because I want to get to the meat of the presentation, which is the report, the maintenance report on how we're going to take care of some of these things. This, again, does not have a secure vestibule space, but we found some fairly inexpensive ways to achieve that space, and we'll talk about that briefly later. They do have a STEM space, which you recently toured at the last facilities committee meeting, and that's something that I think is going to be a growing function in the building. It'd be nice to tie some of the adjacent tech areas into that STEM program. The HVAC systems, the big need there. I think I played some audio for you. Way back at one of the the facilities committee meetings of the upper left piece of equipment that it sounded like it was grinding some gears. So that's obviously something that's got to be taken care of relatively shortly. And the senior high building, that did have recent significant additions and renovations back in '04. That part of the building is in really good shape. It does have some dated areas that could use some attention. As everybody knows, when you have buildings and you have 3 of your buildings on campus that are within the neighborhood, specifically senior high, there's a lot of parking and vehicular congestion at pickup drop-off. So we'll be working with the district to see what other opportunities there are to improve circulation at those hours. There are some drainage issues around in the baseball field area, as well as in the added cafeteria space. There's some backflow during heavy rain under the doors there. That might take a little more attention because the concrete sidewalk out there kind of slopes in the wrong direction. So that's going to take some attention. And that's one of the recommended fix items. The building does have quite a bit of security cameras, I think upwards of 60-some security cameras, but the head end unit is antiquated and definitely needs to be replaced with an HD MVR system. And I know the cameras have been upgraded here and there, but I think the overhaul for that system is going to be one of the main recommendations to help security of the building. There have been a handful of roof leak areas. We do have a report that the district has in hand for all the roofs in the district. Because of the size of the senior high school, there are multiple roofing projects over the next few years. So you're not looking at doing re-roofing or roofing repairs over the entire thing. So that's something that easily fits into the 5 and 10-year maintenance program that you have. So you're tackling pieces instead of the whole thing over time. And finally, the district offices building at the Lausch building. It's a nice 73 building. It's designed with the open classroom concept plan, which turned over to district offices shortly after the Owatin Creek building opened. It houses quite a few of the district functions in addition to learning support and the other items here, obviously facilities, human resources, special ed, and so on. The building is, despite its age, it's in relatively good shape, very durable materials, and it's functioning pretty well for the services that are in the building currently. One thing of note in the upper left corner image, there are multiple HVAC rooftop units. Those are probably going to need attention over the next few years. So within the maintenance program, we're recommending setting money aside to replace a few at a time up there, so you can get ahead of maintenance issues there. And at the end of each of the narratives for the building report, we include the Energy Star rundown, which is a requirement of PDE to include in your district-wide feasibility studies. Giving a basic scorecard. It doesn't always tell the whole story, but it gives you a snapshot of how the buildings are performing and which buildings need a lot of attention. As you can see there, the 55 at the junior high kind of highlights the aged equipment there that's going to need replacements shortly. So briefly, 3 of the 6 schools, as I mentioned, don't have properly secured entrances. There are some building code issues, not necessarily a lot of life safety, which we call the fire alarms and the indicator systems. Those are in relatively good shape. It's more building code issues when you do renovations, things that might trigger improvements. With today's educational support systems, there's more need than ever for small group instruction spaces, and that's really highlighted at the elementary level, which I'll touch on briefly as we go through here. Dedicated spaces for the science programs, talking to the principals, time was really a pressure for them as far as the science curriculum at the elementary level. While they have curriculum in place, to set things up within the existing classrooms is difficult to maintain their schedules. So finding spaces for those projects, those group projects and science projects to happen would be a benefit. And the building systems, as mentioned. There are opportunities for energy savings, system design highlighted, electrical is a big one, highlighting specifically the lighting in the buildings, which is predominantly fluorescent, and switching over to an LED system could reap benefits operationally for the district. So that's a consideration within those next 5 years or so to take a look at it, upgrade to. When we were going through and looking at things, you'll notice in the end product, we worked with Mr. Purzuy, the facilities director, and the facilities committee to review the priority items. It's kind of a reverse priority number. Number one being something that could be deferred maintenance with, and then up to number 5, which would be a critical need, obviously safety and security, and then in between there. So we use this as a guide in setting up and bundling the work over the proposed work over the next 5 years to improve the buildings. And we, as you can see at the bottom of each of these columns, we identified, 5 as being some critical items to look at. So each of these schools, as you can see, we looked at security, code compliance, building infrastructure, which means the guts of the building, the systems, the educational environments, and then the site around the building. So this is just a quick way to get a compressed narrative, a bigger report, along with a priority ranking for each of the buildings with a score. So you can see Lorraine and Jackson, while each of 18, 19, the higher the number, the more needs that it will have in the short term. And you can see junior high is another 18 building. Senior high has 16 simply because there's some security issues with the camera systems, and then some of the code compliance items in the older portions of the building that can be taken care of. And that's just a compressed summary of that scoring system. And as I mentioned, I'm not going to dwell too much on this, but we went through all the buildings. We looked at each of the spaces to see how they're being used currently and talking with principals, and identified the functional capacity, the general education capacity. As you can see here, we've got capacity at Reichton of 600. Functionally, now there's 12 other full-size classrooms that give you another 290 in capacity, but they're being used for learning support, reading, gifted programs, computer education. So when I mentioned that there's need, in addition to those larger spaces, but for some small group spaces, there may be some opportunities to subdivide some of those spaces to get better use out of the building should those needs emerge in the future. And these diagrams were developed through our 3D system just to show, the blue being the traditional classrooms and the yellow learning support special use. And we replicated that for all of the buildings as a visual tool to go back and review with the decision-making group on how to target improvements and try to maybe capture some additional educational environment spaces. This is all fed off of that evaluation. This is basically a compressed look at each of the schools with the current enrollment numbers, the regular ed classrooms, and what that capacity is available to the schools as they're being used right now. You'll notice one of the highlights here, Reichton looks like it's super packed at 99%. but that is only because of the spaces that are soon to be available with the one-to-one program, bring a lot of space up as needed. We do get some fluctuations. I was talking to Dr. Phillips the other day about, bubbles in classes and such, and as they move through, they do stress the capacity a bit. And then we have a further breakdown of grade structure, number of students per grade that basically supports that compressed evaluation in the front. So we're going to step into the 5-year capital plan. This is a proposed plan that's been presented over the last couple of meetings, and we've been tweaking things based on feedback, additional feedback that came from the committee meetings, as well as small group instructions with Rob Kazooie and Ann and Dr. Phillips about how to bundle the proposed work here. Just highlighting at Lorraine, one of the improvement items would be lighting with the electric here, LED upgrades both interior and exterior. Within the first 3 years of the lookout here, the engineers estimated about $320,000 for those upgrades now. And before they would launch into that work, they'll be doing a close evaluation to give Ann Guidish a good look at what the payback period would be for that type of work before we would move forward with it. Just to give you a sense of what we're doing, what we're looking at on this spreadsheet, this is a snippet from a live document, an Excel document, and Rob and Ann and our team, we can sort basically everything in the left-hand column under building systems and type. You can just look at how the building envelope is and what those items are. There's a master spreadsheet so you can sort by school. This one specifically is for Lorraine. And then within each of that is an item, a brief description, and of course the costs associated with them. And at the top you'll see, at the time this was put together, we have 1 year out as the 18-19 school year, and any type of project that we would expect to happen in that 18-19 school year would be starting in the summer of 2018. So it'd be kind of in the middle of the end of the 17-18 school year and the beginning of the 18-19 school year, just as a clarification there. And then we totaled each of those line items up for each of the schools for that 5-year out. Also keep in mind, for each of the buildings, we actually have this out more than 10 years, but for the purpose of this study and this presentation, we're focusing on a 5-year plan to best, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, provide the safety, security, and the educational environment that's going to promote the district's goals for educating the students for the near future. This is the junior high sheet. There's a grouping of HVAC, that's heating, ventilation, air conditioning. You can see a big number here for the chiller plant and piping, which is making some noise and raising some eyebrows. So we've got that slated. It is a big ticket number, but unfortunately with this type of work, a lot of the improvements aren't going to be seen. They won't be seen physically, but you'll see them in the operational improvements of the building. This slide here is just a snippet of the master program, the master document that on the left side, every school is color-coded, and these numbers represent the priority items, with 5 being not a pressing issue. You'll see, or 5, I'm sorry, is the pressing issue, 1 is not. There are areas, say, of the Jackson Wall build-up roof that was installed. That's really not due to really need much attention or be out of warranty until 2031. So there'll be some line items here that just don't have costs attached to them because they're beyond the 5-year need. I know that was very dense. Thank you, everybody. I'd be happy to answer any questions or go back and take a look at anything that I may have went too quickly through.
Hey Ed, how are you doing? This is Jim. I have one first question for you is, in your layout of the year-by-year suggested program, we have the items that are categorized as a 5. And under security, typically you're putting those in the first year, but then you also span those out into further years. Is there a reason we wouldn't want to take those all on at one time to try to be, just get it out of the way and make sure we have everything in place?
Yes, that's something that we actually just talked about a week ago when I sat with Rob and Dr. Phillips. That is something that I think is, we're going to kind of follow Ann's lead as far as what can be afforded in the near term. So we can pull a lot of the security items forward. We just want to make sure that they fall in line with the funds available. A lot of these items were listed for the 17-18 school year, which is coming up now. So we'd probably be looking at the 17-18, 18-19 school year, as I said, because the work that's going to happen in the schools that's going to involve the security upgrades will probably be happening as soon as the students are out in June of 2018. So those first 2 years are going to be pressed, and I think a lot of security items we can probably put into that time frame.
With regards to the roofing, I know that we have some slated for this year, but then we have some for future years. Is it possible that we'll get additional life out of those and we can get extended warranties from any of the providers?
Yes, I think Tremco did a really good thorough evaluation, and there are some opportunities at both Lorraine and Jackson Wall to do an application that could give you a warranted roof for another 10 years without ripping up everything and starting fresh with say a 20-year EPDM roof or a 30-year EPDM system, which would be much more costly.
Is there a typical percentage of savings that you would say by doing that type of coating compared to what we might be seeing on this estimate? For example, the sheet we're looking at right now, we have the top line item for $945,000.
Right, that's a 30-year, the 30-year roof. It was restored in 2007, 10 years. That's one of those items that we can see considerable savings if we go with a 10-year coating application. I think it's, I apologize, I don't have the Tremco cost estimate in front of me at the moment. I don't want to put Rob on the spot, but it is significantly less costly than putting, say, a 30-year roof on.
You had mentioned that you're going to sit down and look at the potential ROI for the lighting. Is there, what is the expected life expectancy for LED fixtures? And is there any kind of feeling that it might be like 3 to 5 years, or you really need to study the numbers to come up with any kind of specifics right now?
Yeah, I actually just talked to Steve Griff earlier this evening. He really wants to kind of sharpen his pencils and look at each school individually to give a proper ROI. Because the LEDs, their life is much longer, and now we're getting more data on those systems. So I personally can't hazard how long those lights are going to last. A lot of it comes down to the drivers that run, the little computer drivers that run the system, but the physical equipment itself, the lighting fixtures, it's well beyond a 10-year life expectancy, which is better than most fluorescent systems. And the energy usage is way lower. I know when we had the engineers in for the facilities committee meeting, they were talking in a 5 to 7 year range for the ROI, but we definitely want to make sure that's pinned down because that's going to involve your long-term budgeting. That's going to be Anne's realm. She's going to want to keep a close eye on that, so we want to make sure, we're talking 5 to 7 years. Is it closer to 5? Is it closer to 7? Because with the numbers we're looking at, we want to make sure that we have a good tight number for you moving forward.
Okay, thanks.
Any additional questions? So it looks like we don't have any further questions, Ed, so, just wanna thank you,
Very good.
for a very, thorough and comprehensive report. And, we look forward to continuing to work with you, and I'm sure if we do have any future, questions, we will, communicate through our facilities committee, and, I will continue to work, to get things, moving in a positive direction.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Edwards.
Have a nice evening.
You too. Thank you. I appreciate you offering the technology here.
Worked out pretty well. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ed. Have a good
Yeah.
night.
Thanks, sir.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Okay. We'll move on in the agenda. We will next have a buildings and grounds report from our facilities director, Mr. Ralph Bushu.
Good evening. I'd like to thank Ed Mangold for doing my building report, if anyone has any questions. You all got my report, I guess, via email, so I'm not gonna read it word for word and have more facilities discussion here than most normal people can take. So I'm just gonna run down it real quick, and then afterwards, if you guys have questions, you can fire them away. So as far as summer projects goes, I think one of our major accomplishments this year was our gym floor finishing. We finished the gym floors at the senior high school, the junior high school, and the Reichten School. We did this work in-house. We had our custodial supplier, Veritiv, come in and train our staff at the junior high school on the techniques for applying the finish. And led by Eric Borsog, the custodial staff did the senior high school and the Reichten School by themselves. So I think most of you were at the Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting last Monday and saw the junior high. I would suggest taking a look at the senior high before it starts getting heavily used. So the plan is to do that senior high school every year, junior high school possibly every year, and then Reichten will probably go on an every other year rotation as far as keeping those gym floors. I believe, I don't have an accurate number, but I believe 6 years went by since the junior high was last refurbished. So it does make a big deal, and it protects the floor, and it looks pretty good. So the athletic improvements we did this year, the varsity softball field, as I discussed at the facilities committee meeting, the home run fence was installed in the spring. The warning track and bullpens were installed this summer, complete. Scoreboard installation is pending for the end of August, and we have AEM architects working on drawings and specs for dugouts comparable to the baseball field dugouts, with the goal of having them installed and completed before the start of next season. Team Room A, we had the replacement of the lockers in that team room, 74 new lockers. We replaced all the ceiling tiles and lens covers. New water fountain was installed. The rooms were painted by the football boosters. I don't want to take credit from them, but we did touch up after the lockers were installed to make it look good. So generators at junior high school generator, transfer switch, and the exhaust vent in the senior high school for the secondary generators pending for completion before school starts. There is a little bit of a update as far as the high school generator, the exhaust leak. I did come across our HIRA report, which stated that there is no asbestos-containing materials in the high school. However, the contractor had his asbestos contractor look at it, who believes it is. So, in order for safety of everyone involved, we're having that insulation tested on Thursday, and it's a 24-hour turnaround, so I will know by Thursday, or Friday, or at the latest Monday, whether that does contain asbestos, and if it does, then we'll proceed with the abatement as planned. If not, then the generator company can come in and just fix it. And then, obviously, district-wide, summer cleaning and maintenance is being performed, and we're on schedule for completion before the teachers come back. The next part of my report was the facility study, which I won't go too far into because we just did for a half hour. I did want to just provide a update or two to that. I do have Tremco. I did meet with them, and it is possible for us to do the Lorraine and Jackson Wall roofs during the school year. So if we wanted to take that opportunity to get work done in this fiscal year, they do this kind of roof recovering during school hours. It's minimally invasive. It wouldn't affect the learning environment or noise or chemicals or anything like that. He'd be more than happy to come and speak to the board and explain that process if you seem to want that.
So what part of the school year, I mean, not in the middle
Well,
of winter, right?
he's working on a proposal right now for me, which I should have in my hands before the next work session in September for Lorraine. Or excuse me, Jacksonville. No, I was right the first time, Lorraine. We could do Lorraine, in the fall, and then, Jacksonville in the spring. And, that would, both those projects would be completed. Obviously, Lorraine would be completed before the winter, before the temperatures made it prohibitive to do work of that nature. And Jacksonville will be completed before June 30th, the fiscal year deadline.
Excuse me, when you say the roofs to be redone, are you talking about the 10-year extension?
Yeah, what Tremco proposes is a roof recovery system, which I actually have a sample of in my office. I can run and get it after the meeting if you want to look at it. There's different levels of that recovering system where the less expensive one has fewer layers, therefore you get the 7-year warranty. The thicker, more sturdier ones is where you get that 30-year warranty from. So, that would be a decision that the board and administration have to make, whether they wanted, me, I'm a big fan of 30-year roof warranties, but, I'm biased on that, so. But yeah, that's, okay.
Just out of curiosity, so, what exactly does a warranty mean? Because I've had plenty of warranties that never meant.
Well, you get into sticky ground there sometimes, especially when you only do partial roof replacements, and you get people telling you, oh no, my roof's not leaking, it's the other roof that's running underneath. So basically the warranty is especially, and Tremco's been very good in the year that I've been here, I work with them. They come at the drop of a hat, and actually we went through a period where my maintenance guy was addressing some of the leaks in-house, and they actually called me. And so we haven't heard from you, like we heard from Ken Pitts all the time, like, are you okay? So, they're very responsive, so they would come out. I mean, if we had a roof leak issue, now sometimes it's not a roof leak, sometimes it comes through the HVAC units, that if the rooftop units leak, sometimes there's flashing, sometimes it's brickwork. I know we have some issues like that over in junior high, where it's not coming from the roof, it's coming from the brickwork, so, which is something that's addressed in KCBA's plan, so that's.
So warranty means they handle that free of cost, or
Yes.
warranty is a response time, is that?
Yes, both.
The Jackson Wall HVAC system, when is that on the list?
I believe it was 1819. Yeah, a majority of the HVAC in Jacksonville is on slate for 1819.
Is that system Yeah.
Sure, well, yeah, I mean, I can't promise anything, you know. You know,
I'm looking for warranties here. Come
But
on.
I think, you know, we'll definitely get one more year out of it, and possibly two, but, you know, it's just, it's not a matter of it, I think, even completely failing, you know, us having to hand out codes, it's just us putting money back into that system to repair it and keep it operating. So that's where you're seeing the money go out, is the general upkeep and repair as things fail.
Ed gave an indication that we'd have significant cost difference between the 7 and a 30 or 10 and 30-year roof. What kind of significant, about 50%, 10%
Yeah.
cost, 20% cost?
Yeah, I mean, between the 7-year and the 30-year option is definitely a 50% or more. If I remember the numbers correctly from the spreadsheet, but I would have to dig that out of my files.
With regards to the shower heads in the senior high, there were some issues about that towards the end of last year, some mold issues. Is that all?
Well, there was, I did get some complaints with the shower heads. Right now, I think there's 13 or 14, all of them work now but one. The shower heads in there are no longer commercially available, and we had issues with the shut-off valves outside of that tea room in order to shut the water completely off of that. That's something that was addressed this summer. That was also something where that valve was frozen at the 70% position, so there was a water pressure issue there too, that replacing those valves fixed. So now that we have those valves, we can isolate that one bad shower head or shower panel and see about getting replacements, but finding replacement parts for those showers is difficult.
Talking about things involving water, you had some various valves that were starting to give way in various places last year. The full leaks, have we had that?
We had some
problem
this year too, especially when we replaced those valves. It was a chain of events. Like
Yeah.
we fixed one and we chased it all the way back to the boiler room where the backflow preventer actually got clogged from all the sediment. We had to rip that apart and resurface that. But other than that, we haven't had any major valve failures. So.
On page 2 of your notes, 2 columns above staff, you note that we're accepting proposals for evaluation of our current lighting system for exterior LED replacement district-wide. Is this different than what we just
No.
received from KCBA?
It's, well, KCBA's was identifying a need and putting numbers from their best estimates on return on investment or overall cost. What the proposals we're receiving now is for actual studies for vendors to come in and evaluate our lighting systems and give us real numbers of what it would cost to replace our current lighting with LEDs and what the actual return on investment would be compared to our energy bills. So, you know, I think KCBA's numbers are just from their past, you know, especially with the return on investment numbers, the 5 to 7 years that they've been thrown around. That's, I think, they're coming from their usual, what they see in past projects where we need to get a real number that is for next year.
Concerning the refinishing of the floors, did we buy the equipment that we need for that, or did we rent it?
Okay, so equipment-wise, and maybe I should clarify what the refinishing of the floor means. Refinishing the floor isn't grinding or sanding all the way down and repainting the floor and then putting all the finish on. What we basically did is we shower scrubbed the surface, you know, made it clean and a little bit abrasive to accept the finish, and they actually apply the finish with a weighted pad. So, which we purchased, but, you know, they were, you know, mop handles and pads. The finish, you know, isn't cheap, but, you know, that equipment is what we have, and the pads are one use you can throw away, you can't save them, but, you know, so they're interchangeable, so.
So can you give us any estimate what it would have cost if we had done that outside and gone on a contract
For
as
those 3
compared to
gyms, for those three,
inside?
yeah, for those three gyms, I can say conservatively, you're talking 5 figures. You're talking at least 10,000.
There was a quote for 17,000 for the refinish on the list.
And I'm not sure what that entailed, they may have been going down and doing repainting and stuff like that, which obviously we wouldn't do.
Well,
Like
we're very appreciative of the
Yeah, Eric and his
staff's
staff did
endeavor.
a really great job. I was there during the process. They tried to get me to help. I wouldn't, because I didn't want to mess up their floors. I've done it before, and it's not fun, so.
I see where we have, some custodial staff still, missing at high school. Do you have you had any success?
Oh, yeah,
for the school?
those two positions are posted, and there's actually, one internal candidate so far for the lead position at the high school. The other position, we have a couple outside people interested in, so it's just a matter of going through the postings and waiting until the posting date ends and we can do interviews and stuff like that, so that's on track.
Thank you.
Other questions? Facilities all ready for school? Buildings
Yeah, we
clean?
got a week and a half
Ready to
left.
go?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, that's good to know. All right, well, thanks.
We'll be good.
Thanks for the report tonight. Okay, next on the agenda is the time where we entertain the comments from the public. This is a chance to comment on either matters that are on our current agenda or anything else that might be relevant to the school. Please come up and stand up here and state your name and your address.
Good evening, folks. I'm Jerry Gallup. I have two things I want to talk about tonight real quickly. Number one, I see on the agenda that you're going to be voting on the installation of a lawyer at every voting meeting. I would ask you to turn that down. That's money that we do not have to spend and the taxpayers cannot afford. It's something we don't need and there's no reason to do it. The second thing, at the July 18th meeting, towards the end, Mr. Quitter made some unkind remarks towards Ms. Peja, and I would like to ask on behalf of the taxpayers for an apology for Mrs. Peja.
That's I think between Mr. Quinter and let me just say something about those sorts of comments. You know, I know that you came to me and mentioned something about it as well, and I took that to heart. You know, I think it is important that, you know, as board members, we all adhere to our policy that reflects the principles for governance and leadership. And that means, you know, respectful behavior and courteous behavior at board meetings. So part of my job really is to enforce that. So I take responsibility for whatever happened at that meeting. And, you know, my goal would be to do a better job in the future of ensuring that the dialogue and the conversation between board members continues to be respectful and in compliance with our policy. So going forward, you know, I think that is something I think all of our board members have acknowledged. We all voted on it, and I think it's important that we all apply that. So thank you for your comment.
It's not setting a great example for kids. Short of that, I think short of an apology, I think you should look to some type of censure. I don't know what's involved in that, but I think you should look to it. That's it.
Okay, any other new comments from the public? Okay, our next area of minutes, and we've got board voting minutes from the July 18th voting meeting. And I would move that we approve those minutes.
So moved, Peter Singer.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Treasurer's report. Mrs. Page.
I move the following financial statements, for 7/31/17. We have the year-to-date summary of revenue and expenditures, all funds, statement of our assets, our liabilities, and our fund balances, payroll and our fringe benefit summary, investment statements, and student activity and athletic fund. I move the treasurer's report.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Board policies, I'm going to, unless there's any objection, I'm going to ask that we move to approve all of the policies for first reading that appear on the agenda. And obviously we can have some discussion about that, but unless there's any objection, I'll move that we approve policies listed in the agenda from policy A to F. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, and
Yeah, I had raised a question about policy 122, extracurricular activities, where we say the students will not be charged for participating, and yet we have a activity fee. So it appeared to me that that's a contradiction.
Sure, I would have asked Mr. Legath to go back when the student activity fee was instituted and see if there's any documentation of how that applied to our policy at the time. I also asked Mr. Katz to look into if there's any discrepancy as well. He hasn't got back to his actually on vacation, and Mr. Legath is still going through his records. But the only conversation I had with Mr. Katz about this is that the policies themselves can be read into however you would like to read into it. So he said we may have to add a bit of a line to
Yeah.
clarify our situation.
Yeah,
Or delete, you might delete that statement
Mhm.
to have a policy reflect our practice.
Mhm.
Yeah, we can either delete it or we can add a line that says there's nothing in the policy that would prevent the board from enacting a, student activity fee. But one of those two, and I think considering this is first reading, which means we have a second reading between now and the next board meeting, we'll have some response to that.
We'll have clarification from both Mr.
Right.
Legath and Mr. Katz.
And we'll communicate that, and that'll be, we can discuss that at our next meeting before we vote on the final version.
Thank you.
Thanks for bringing that up. Any other discussion items? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next section is business functions. Dr. Hearing.
Item 8A, resolve the Board of School Directors of the Exeter Township School District authorizes settlement of the assessment appeal filed by Never Sink Realty Associates to number 15-20428 Berks County Courts of Common Pleas in accordance with the attached stipulation, and resolved further that the solicitor assistant solicitor is authorized to execute the stipulation on behalf of the school district.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 8B, it is recommended that the Board of School Directors establishes a minimum present value debt service savings to the school district after payment of all costs of issuance related to the funding of general obligation bond series 2011 of at least 2%.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 8C, it is recommended that the Board of School Directors approves parameters resolution to issue debt, Series 2017, in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $7.5 million. The funds will provide for the following: the refunding of a portion of the school district's outstanding general obligation bonds and paying the costs and expenses of issuance of the debt obligation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 8D, it is recommended that the Board of School Directors grants permission for Hometown Heroes to hold a fireworks show near Don Thomas Stadium as part of the charity event on September 10th, 2017.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just a question. I've read the attachment, and I would like a clarification on near Don Thomas Stadium, and in fact, do the fireworks fall onto the artificial turf?
We've been doing, as far as my concern, we've been doing these for years, and I haven't heard of any issues that the fireworks fall on the,
I wasn't sure if this was the same or different.
No, this is the same.
It just seems a little, you know,
The area they set up is behind, between, I guess, the junior high and high school.
okay, all right, thank you.
Perhaps my question is similar, what kind of indemnification do we have? Let's see, who covers the insurance if something goes wrong? If something goes wrong, whose insurance policy covers that?
In that case, it would be, I believe, ours, because we're allowing the event.
Usually there's some sort of, you can get a rider for something like that. A group that uses somebody else's facility will give you an insurance rider so that it's protect them.
Right.
I don't know if you're gonna require that.
Commercial, yeah.
That would be a cost, I don't believe, that charity.
They're usually negligible cost.
In the whole scheme of things, yes.
Now, I've done them before where I've had to use facilities, but I would ask somebody with.
I don't believe that's something we've asked in the past.
No, we haven't.
Are you saying that the district would pursue the insurance, or our insurance covers that already, or?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember how many years this is. It's really only been, the hometown hero is just a couple of years. It really hasn't, it's not the, May days.
May Day is a school-sponsored event, whereas the Hometown Heroes is an outside agency.
I'm gonna have to follow up with, our, making sure that, there is the necessary coverage. If we need to have an endorsement, you know, in order to cover this, then we'll have to get that. If our agent feels that it's necessary for this. But we can take care of it.
Thank you.
Is that not a standard requirement for anyone who applies to use our facilities, that they would provide some sort of insurance rider?
They do. But I have not been directly involved in this, but
Okay.
I'll make sure I follow
All right,
up.
thank
make
you.
sure.
Yep.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 8E, it is recommended that the Board of School Directors appoints the following voting delegates to participate in the PSBA Delegate Assembly to be held on Friday, October 22, 2017. Dr. Hamburger and Mrs. O'Brien.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Item 8F, it is recommended that the Board of School Directors requires the attendance of the solicitor at every board voting meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
Yes. Though in the past it has not been the practice to have our solicitor president workshop meetings, it has always been our practice to have our solicitor president our board voting meetings in case certain issues came up of legal discussion. Now, upon hiring our new firm, it was brought to our attention we might be able to save some costs regarding having a solicitor present at every one of our meetings. I do believe that that is something we should look into. However, as we're starting a new relationship with this solicitor, and the fact that we have a number of board members who will be leaving and a number of new board members that will be coming onto our board, I think that we should have at least a 6-month period where we request that the firm be present at our meetings, which will tie us over for the first 2 to 3 months of the new members coming on, so we can get a flavor. And after that, we might want to reconsider that, or ask that the firm have someone live online with us where they can watch us, which would save some costs in travel, but they would be available to answer or respond to any questions that come up.
So you're requesting that we amend the current motion?
Yes, I would like to amend the motion to recommend that we have the firm attend board voting meetings through March of 2018, with our group reconsidering the idea in February of 2018, in order we can understand where we are. Or I should reconsider in March.
This is just a hologram now, isn't it?
Come on.
Like the second,
Depending on how you look at that, does he look like Ellis?
I'm not going.
Your hair is not that gray.
What hair?
okay, we're gonna have, we have a motion and a second to amend the current motion. And to include a recommendation to have a solicitor at every board meeting through March of 2018.
Board
That would be every board meeting, right? Any discussion about that?
Yeah, I think Jim makes a good point. I mean, I'll refer to the last board meeting. We referred to Ellis at least 4 times in that meeting. We're a corporate body that takes a binding action on policy and personnel, and we also comply with federal and state law. And I do think there's value in having an attorney, particularly when there's a potential for half the board to turn over in November. I think until you've actually experienced your personal liability and exposure and the district's liability and exposure, you might think it's unnecessary until you're the one that has to deal with the consequences of that. So I would support what Jim is saying.
Or any other discussion?
I'll take the opposite point of view in that, I think this is an opportunity to, experiment without having an attorney present at the, voting meeting. And if it doesn't work out, where the new board feels that it's appropriate to have an attorney at every board meeting and wants to pay for that, that change in policy can be done at any meeting.
What constitutes doesn't work out, legal action?
Well, that's a judgment of the board. Yeah. But I feel that, in a sense, it's the working meeting that really when the issues come up. So that gives us, the board, an opportunity for legal counsel between the discussion meeting and the board meeting, so that any legal issues can be anticipated prior to the board voting meeting, and anything that needs further clarification can be tabled until a further time to vote on it.